And after this morning's panel, when PJ took part, I don't believe we need any further introduction. Your program, page, let me see, what would it be? Alphabetical. Who needs a page number? He has wonderful books, and I hope you read them all. I've read them all. They're just delightful to read, speaking of great communicators. He has written Parliament of Horrors, Republican Party Reptile, Holidays in Hell, Give War a Chance, Eat the Rich, the CEO of the Sofa, and on a more serious note, on the Wealth of Nations. And yes, he read the whole darn thing, so you don't have to. And let's welcome to the stage now with his title, Don't Vote. It just encourages the bastards, which is a follow-on to his earlier recommendation to vote for Hillary, the devil we know. So please welcome back P.J. O'Rourke. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, tough year. What can I do? First thing I'd like to do is just thank you all for being here. I mean, just thank you, not just for being here, but for being who you are, for being investors. Because, investment defines humanity. I mean, animals don't invest. If a dog has a surplus, he will eat it all up and vomit it, rather than give some of it to another dog in return for shares in the car chasing and the chewing of shoes, right? Investment defines civilization. Barbarians don't raise money with debt and equity. They raise money by stealing, or by invading Crimea, or by getting Bashar al-Assad to pay them to bomb hospitals in Syria, Investment is one of the greatest developments in human history. If it were not for investment, all of the inventors, the innovators, the manufacturers, all the business people who have brought decent living standards to the four corners of the globe, they'd all have to get their money the way I do, by asking my wife. I am, however, a little daunted at speaking here to you investment wizards, because I don't know much about investing. I don't know much about business in general. I was an English major, or as they call it in business school, stupid. Best investment that I've made lately, I left $20 in the pocket of this suit coat when I took my family out for dinner last month, and I found it this morning. I'm probably too stupid to be talking to you, as a matter of fact, but in fairness to myself, I'm not just stupid. I am a student of stupidity. I am a political reporter. I may not be qualified to speak to you about anything intelligent, but I am perfectly qualified to talk to you about politics. We live in a democracy ruled by the people. 50% of people are below average in intelligence. Mathematical fact. And that explains everything about the 2016 presidential election. And by the way, I am full of righteous indignation about this election, because I am a political satirist, and this election is totally self-satirizing. I'm a political humorist, and I cannot be funnier than Hillary's pantsuits. And I am a political commentator, and I can't get a word in edgewise with Donald Trump interrupting all the time. So I'm not only full of righteous indignation, I'm unemployed. So the 2016 presidential election, time to panic. It's just time to panic. I know the first lesson that you investors are supposed to learn is don't panic, stick to your plan, stay calm, be cool. To hell with it. To hell with it. I mean, if ever there was a moment to flip out and get hysterical, this is it. I mean, the 2016 election, this thing's in a death spiral. Donald Trump has been out there shooting himself in the foot while his foot is in his mouth, and God knows where his hands are. Hillary Clinton, she is on record as being willing to say and do anything to gain the kind of absolute political power in America that nobody's had since King George III, anything. She'll do anything. She'll go into a beauty pageant dressing room alone with Billy Bush and Donald Trump. She'll do anything to get elected. Things could You know, on election day, they could go as wrong as things can go, because there is nothing that has happened in this election cycle that indicates that things can't go that wrong. I mean, one political party could wind up in control of all three branches of the U.S. government, the executive branch, both houses of the legislative branch, and what with Elizabeth Warren and Gloria Steinem bucking for appointments on the Supreme Court, the judicial branch as well, right? I mean, you know, hell, with Roger Ailes out, the Democrats could take over the fourth branch of government, which is Fox News. One-party state. This is what we're going to get. And we get one-party state, there go your checks, except for the big checks you'll be sending to the IRS, and there go your balances, you know, especially the balances in your investment accounts. How bad can things get? Bad. Really, really bad. How high could federal income taxes go? Well, in 1954, federal tax rate for income over $200,000 was 91%. 91%. That is what happens in a one-party state. And never mind that in 1954, the one party was supposed to be pro-business. Ike was president. Republicans have majorities in the Senate and the House of Representatives, 91%. How bad could inflation get? In Germany, during 1921 and 1922, the inflation rate was in the tens of thousands of percent per month. Per month. And that was Germans, smart central bankers in an industrially developed country. I mean, inflation has been lots worse in third world countries. And judging by the kind of election we've been having, America is turning into one. In my office, I have framed on the wall, I've got a little reminder of what can happen with government-controlled fiat money. It's a Zimbabwe banknote for, I kid you not, $100 trillion. Banknote for $100 trillion. Now, if you got one of those, when it was issued, you could, if you rushed quickly, get to a bar and buy a beer with it. $100 trillion. How lousy could the Supreme Court get? Well, it has been lousy before. I mean, right up until 1864, the Supreme Court ruled that slavery was constitutional. Right up until 1954, the Supreme Court ruled that Jim Crow laws were legal. And with Elizabeth Warren on the court, you could be the next Jim Crow. I mean, if you get caught crowing that you make more than the median income in the United States. I mean, or what happens could be worse even than discrimination. I mean, the Supreme Court, it once upheld the Virginia Sterilization Act of 1924. The Virginia Sterilization Act of 1924 let Virginia force so-called undesirables, now known as basket of deplorables, to be operated on to keep them from having babies. And famed Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., he voted with the majority. He said, 3 generations of idiots are enough. I am glad that he never met my family. We're going to get a Supreme Court that will let the federal government do what it damn well pleases. I mean, even the supposedly conservative Supreme Court of President Obama's first term ruled that the government can make us all buy health insurance. I mean, what will the government make us all buy next? Maybe we'll all have to buy a cat, you know? Now, I've got 3 large hunting dogs who love to chase things, you know? I mean, my house is going to be a wreck. And also, my 3 large dogs are largely toothless, and when they catch the cat's going to rip them to shreds. You know, my vet bills will be through the roof. Although by then, of course, President Hillary will have passed the Affordable Veterinary Care Act, and we'll all have to buy pet care insurance. Now, if the government can force us to buy things, then the government can also force us to sell things. The Gold Reserve Act of January 30th, 1934 required every individual in America to surrender all of his or her gold and gold certificates to the U.S. Treasury. And then the U.S. Treasury paid, with paper currency, of course, paid $20.67 per ounce. That in modern money, that is about $372.41, which is about 1/3 the current spot price of gold. And this government confiscation of gold, this was not reversed until 1975. I mean, I recommend that if you own gold, you had better quick turn it into dental fillings and tooth caps, okay? Because the government won't go around prying teeth out of people's mouths. Or will it? Because we'll find out when President Hillary passes the Affordable Dental Care Act. But we won't need any more Affordable Care Acts because all medical treatment of every kind will be completely free in the new one-party state. How will doctors get paid? Well, the answer is poorly. Won't this cause a doctor shortage? No. The government will swiftly call into service alternative medicine practitioners, herbalists and homeopaths and phrenologists and tribal shamans and yoga instructors. So get ready to have your appendix removed by an aromatherapist cutting open your abdomen with the sharp edge of a healing crystal. But I tell you something, this election was a mess right from the get-go. We started out with, about 110 presidential candidates. I mean, who were these jacklegs, these highbinders, wire pullers, mountebanks, swellheads, bunkum spigots, boodle artists, four-flushers, and animated spittoons offering themselves as worthy of America's highest office? I mean, did they take us voters for fools? Well, of course they did. But were they also deluded? Were they also insane? Were they receiving radio broadcasts on their dentures telling them that they should be president? So finally, the American public, rather heroically, I think, managed to narrow it down to 5, to Cruz, Clinton, Kasich, Sanders, and Trump. Cruz, Clinton, Kasich, Sanders, and Trump. That is not a list of presidential candidates. That is the worst law firm in the world. That is a law firm that couldn't get Caitlyn Jenner off on a charge of Bruce Jenner identity theft. I mean, has the office of the presidency diminished in stature until it attracts only the leprechauns of public life? Or have our politicians shrunk until none of them can pass the carnival test, you must be taller than the clown to run for president? Back when all this began, it seemed to me pretty much as if the two candidates would inevitably be Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton, And I trembled for my country because members of the electorate would go into the voting booth, see the names Bush and Clinton, and think to themselves, gosh, I'm getting forgetful. I did this already, And they'd leave without marking the ballot. Voter turnout would be 6%. The shuttle from the old age home would send a few senile Republicans to the polls. A Democratic National Committee bus would collect some derelicts from Skid Row. And we would have the first president of the United States elected by a franchise limited to sufferers from Alzheimer's disease and drunken bums. What happened to Jeb Bush? Jeb had it all. He's young for a Republican. A Phi Beta Kappa, a successful businessman, the former governor of Florida, where balloting incompetence and corruption are vital to the GOP. Plus, he was rolling like a dirty dog in campaign contributions, and then it just all went wrong. And it turned out that even Hillary didn't have a lock on her nomination. Hillary faced a challenge from, of all people, the screwy, kablooey commander of the Vermont Kong, Bernie Sanders, Bernie's a socialist. He says so himself. Now let me define socialist. A socialist is not just somebody who thinks it's okay to steal things. He thinks that's a blessing. Bernie believes that swiping your flat screen TV and giving it to a family of pill addicts in the backwoods of Vermont is a good deed. Bernie claims he wants to make America more like Europe. Great idea, because Europe has had a swell track record for over 100 years now. Just fabulous. Ever since Archduke Ferdinand's car got a flat in Sarajevo in 1914, Make America more like Europe. Where do you even go to get all the Nazis and commies and 90 million dead people that it would take to make America more like Europe, you know? And yet, in a way, we can see what Bernie's appeal was compared to Hillary. I mean, Hillary carries more baggage than the Boeing she used as Secretary of State, visiting every country that later blew up in her face in her quest to fulfill the mission of the U.S. Secretary of State, which is to accumulate frequent flyer miles. I mean, she had Julian Assange set up as her State Department email server. You know, she put the Dalai Lama on security duty at the U.S. consulate in Benghazi. The geopolitical conflicts of interest at the Clinton Foundation, they are so large they have to be weighed on Chris Christie's bathroom scale, you know. And at any moment, her ferret of a husband might slip his leash and get up to old tricks running up the pant legs of young interns, you know. Now, let's be fair. On the upside, Hillary is familiar with the White House. She knows where the extra toilet paper is stored, where the spare key is to the nuke missile launch briefcase, where that's hidden. It's on the Truman balcony, second pillar from the left. And that leaves us with Donald Trump. Now, despite what I said this morning, I've decided I'm supporting Donald Trump. I'm supporting Donald Trump because of something the great political satirist H.L. Mencken said. Mencken said, democracy is the theory that the common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. You know, Trump's chief domestic policy goal will be to be on TV. He really likes to be on TV. And as president, Trump will get to be on TV all the time, 24/7. But this might not be such a bad thing, you know, because just spraying his hair during commercial breaks should keep Trump, you know, too busy to push any other bird-brained domestic policy goals. And Trump can yell, "You're fired," all he wants. It's going to make for a healthy turnover in Trump cabinet appointees, such as Dennis Rodman and Larry King and Vince McMahon. Plus, Trump understands the American economy. He'll grow America's economy the same way he grew his economy, with bad debt, bad debt, bad debt, bad debt, more bad debt. You know, America's average household debt is now more than $225,000, and Trump has restructured $3.5 billion of his business debt and $900 million of his personal debt, restructured being the Trump way of saying that he didn't pay it, and we Americans know a leader when we see one. Then you got to imagine Trump's foreign policy. Now here's a guy who's under the illusion he's about 10 times richer than he actually is, who believes President Obama was born in Kazakhstan to the Queen of Sheba and raised by Islamicist wolves in the remote forests of Harvard Law School. The last part might be true. But Russia and China, Iran, ISIS, the Taliban, and Hamas, they're going to be paralyzed with fear. Who knows what this lunatic is going to do? Well, what he'll do is build hundreds of Trump casinos, Trump hotels, and Trump resorts in Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, Raqqa, Kandahar, and the Gaza Strip. And then all of them will go bankrupt the way Trump Taj Mahal, Trump Plaza Hotel, and Trump Entertainment Resorts did. Trump's going to leave Russia trying to palm off eastern Ukraine on angry bondholders, and China auctioning distressed property in the Spratly Islands. And hell, this might work, you know. Did you watch the debates? Were you able to make yourself do that? Hillary's, it's just like biomechanical. Now, worse than that, really. I mean, calling Hillary a robot is kind of an insult to androids. I mean, she's more like somebody trapped in a Hillary Halloween trick-or-treat outfit, you know? It's like one of those dressed-up creeps in Times Square trapped inside a Hillary costume, you know, pestering tourists for a small change. If you peer at the mask, you can see those little panicked, furtive eyes darting around inside the eye holes. It's a cry for help, you know? I mean, get me out of here, you know? And get her out of here is what the nation should do. Meanwhile, Trump's the guy from the mailroom who somehow wound up with a job interview for national sales manager, you know? Now, if you promote him, it's going to be a disaster. But if you leave him in the mailroom, he's going to take his pants down, sit on the Xerox machine, and fax the results to all your customers, right? So, you know, we have two parties in this country. We have got the stupid party and the silly party. Now, as I mentioned, I'm stupid, so I vote for the stupid party. I'm a Republican. I vote Republican because Republicans have fewer ideas. but not few enough. Not few enough. Homeland Security, the Iraq War, No Child Left Behind. No child left behind. What if they deserve to be left behind? You know, what if they deserve a smack on the behind? You know, nationwide testing program to determine whether kids are what? Dumb? You've got kids. Kids are dumb. You know. Now, the Democrats say government can make us richer and smarter and taller with a better health care insurance policy and 10 strokes off our golf game. You know, the Republicans say government doesn't work, and then they get elected and they prove it. Democrats say, we don't know what's wrong with capitalism, but we can fix it. The Republicans say there's nothing wrong with capitalism and we can fix that. Now, some people think politicians don't accomplish anything because of partisan political bickering. No. We want them to bicker. We want them to bicker. The two most frightening words in Washington are bipartisan consensus. Bipartisan consensus. That's like when my doctor and my lawyer agree with my wife that I need help. People say, oh, America is so polarized. Well, no, we're not. No, we're not. 1861, that was polarized, and I'm not seeing Fort Sumter taking any incoming at the moment, you know. America's not polarized. We're just split on some issues. Half of Americans want more social services that other people will pay for, and half of Americans is other people. You know, damn it, I'm a libertarian. I'm a libertarian. I mean, well, okay, not maybe a capital L libertarian, because I can't say that the capital L Libertarian Party is making the kind of impact you'd expect in an election where the two major party candidates are so unpopular they seem to be engaged in a competition to see who can get unfriended most on Facebook. I mean, I like Gary Johnson and Bill Weld. I wouldn't even surprise myself if I end up voting for them, but Johnson does seem, if maybe sort of like he not only legalized but also utilized a certain recreational substance. You know? Also, he thinks Aleppo is a brand of dog food. And I am not at all sure what a former moderate Republican is doing on a libertarian slate, but Bill Weld does like to have a good time, and maybe he thinks running for vice president will get him invited to cocktail parties. And so Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, I'm thinking of it as the Toke and Tipple ticket, you know. But anyway, I am a serious small L libertarian. I want all politics to go away. I mean, you know, libertarianism is not a political philosophy. Libertarianism is an anti-political philosophy. Libertarians don't want to fix politics. Well, I take that back. We do want to fix politics, the way you'd fix a cat, you know, the way you would spay a dog, the way you would castrate a dangerous bull. We libertarians mean to tame these political SOBs. We are going to teach them not to beg at the table, teach them not to bark at the moon, teach them to quit licking each other's, you know what. We're going to teach politicians to heal. We're going to teach politicians to come when they're called. And more important, we're going to teach them the meaning of down boy and watch them scurry away with their tails between their legs when we holler, get. We're going to teach politicians domestic policy. Stay off the furniture. No politics on my bed. We're going to teach them foreign policy. Stop making messes on other people's lawns. We're going to teach them to roll over and play dead because we're going to teach them term limits. When we toss our political power to a politician, that politician is going to bring our political power right back here and drop it at our feet. Good boy. Now get back in your kennel. Or such is the fervent hope and dream of every libertarian. But I am afraid that that program is going to take a while. And in the meantime, we've got politics as usual. Like I was saying, we've got bipartisan consensus. In fact, bipartisan consensus happens all the time because all politicians, Democrats and Republicans alike, want government to solve every one of the world's problems, from curing cancer to getting the Kardashians off TV. You know? They want government to do this. Government can't run a post office. I mean, government has trouble figuring out where mail goes, and mail has got our address right on the front of it. You know? Government solving all of the world's problems. This is expensive. And it's not just that I don't want to pay more taxes personally. It is the big picture that gets me. America's gross domestic product's in excess of $14 trillion a year. America's combined federal, state, and local government spending is $5.8 trillion a year. That's 40% of GDP. Government is spending 40% of our money. Ought to be enough. And if you're giving your college kid 40% of your income for an allowance, should hold them till the end of the semester, you know? Government is spending 40% of our money. Is government doing 40% of our work? Is government doing 40% of our laundry? I mean, if we go out over to Bourbon Street, is government tending bar, making sure that 4 out of 10 hurricanes are on the house, you know? When my spouse is feeling romantic and I'm tired, does government come over to my house and take care of foreplay? Actually, if Bill Clinton gets back to Washington, could happen. You know, not one of the innumerable presidential candidates whose interminable campaigns we have had to endure over the past 2 years has had a single word to say about the most important issues facing our nation. Not a word about national debt, federal deficit, or the infinite and infinitely expanding size and scope of government. Well, Rand Paul was a minor exception, but as it turned out, Rand Paul was also a minor candidate, you know. Now, I'll give you an example of government size that I just came across the other day. I was writing something about federal poverty programs, and I wanted to know how many federal poverty programs there were. And I went to the House of Representatives Budget Committee's website, and this is what I found, and I quote word for word. Quote, there are at least 92 federal programs to help lower-income Americans. Let me emphasize that, at least. There are so many federal poverty programs that even the House of Representatives Budget Committee, run by Republicans, doesn't know exactly how many federal poverty programs there are. And I'll give you an example of government spending, one that's been around forever, Social Security. There is no money in the Social Security Trust Fund, and there never was, because money is a government IOU. And the government can't create a trust fund by saving its own IOUs any more than I was able to create a trust fund for myself by writing, I get a chunk of money when I turn 21 on a piece of paper. Well, Social Security is just such a piece of paper, except it says, I get a chunk of money when I turn 65, the government promises. Consult American Indians for a further discussion of government promises. You know, politicians work themselves into a lather proving the benefits of government spending. And using that politician logic, I can prove anything. I can prove anything. I can prove that shooting convenience store clerks stimulates the economy. See, jobs are created in the high-paying domestic manufacturing sector at gun and ammunition factories. Additional emergency medical technicians, security guards, healthcare providers, and morticians are hired. The unemployment rate is lowered as job seekers fill new openings on convenience store night shifts. And money stolen from convenience store cash registers stimulates the economy where stimulus is most needed, in low-income neighborhoods where the people who shoot convenience store clerks go to buy their crack. I mean, considering all the good that it does, I am simply flabbergasted that everyone in the House and Senate isn't smoking crack and shooting convenience store clerks this very minute, you know? And then there's the problem of political corruption. And I don't mean political corruption in the sense of politicians on the take per se, although in the case of the Clinton Foundation, I do mean politicians on the take per se. But what I'm really talking about here is the bigger problem, the problem that political corruption is a law of economics. When buying and selling are controlled by legislation, the first things that get bought and sold are legislators. Simple as that. You know, and if anyone knows all there is to know about buying power and selling influence, it is the next president of the United States, whether that next president is a Trump or is a Clinton. But I tell you, I feel bad here. I feel like I'm being kind of a bring down. I feel like I'm afraid I might be worrying you, and I don't want to worry you. I don't want to worry you, because bad as things are, and bad as they're going to get, and they're going to get a lot worse, there still is always hope for investors in the free market. Always hope. For a while, anyway. So, I mean, politicians are not, no matter who, even if Clinton gets elected, they're not going to take away all your investment opportunities. Because Ronald Reagan used to tell a joke about the way politicians treat investors. He said it was like the way the farmer treated the pig. See, a traveling salesman is staying overnight with a farm family. When the family sits down to eat, the salesman notices there's a pig having dinner with them, seated right at the table. And the pig has 3 medals around his neck and a peg leg. And the salesman's a little taken aback. The salesman says, I see you have a pig right here at the table having dinner with you. Yep, says the farmer, that's because he's a very special pig. You see those medals around his neck? Well, the first medal, that's from when our youngest son fell in the pond and he was drowning, and that pig swam out and saved his life. And the second medal, that's from when the barn caught fire and our little daughter was trapped in there, and that pig ran inside, carried her out, and saved her life. And the third medal, that's from when our oldest boy, he was cornered in the stockyard by a mean bull, and that pig ran under the fence and bit the bull on the tail and distracted the bull and saved the boy's life. The salesman says, well, yeah, I can see why you let that pig sit right here with you at the table, and I can see why you awarded him the medals. But how did he get the peg leg? Well, says the farmer, a pig like that, you don't eat him all at once. Okay, thank you. We got time for some Q&A. I think we do have some time for some Q&A. I don't have any answers, but I'm hoping you have questions. I mean, I just told you everything I know, but I can make up some other stuff if you want. Somebody out there must have a question. No questions at all? Come on, some inquiring minds. Sir, right there in the third row. How do we fix it? How do we fix it? We can't. That's the bad news. We can't fix it. But it can fix itself. And you know how it can fix itself? By having a horrible crisis. No matter which of these two characters get elected president, they are going to be disastrous as presidents. And that is going to cause a shakeout. Now, the trouble with this is, I mean, it's like Social Security. You know, Social Security will not get fixed until it is absolutely flat out broke and you go down to take your Social Security check, and I'm of an age to get one too. You go down to the bank and they laugh at you when you try to deposit that. When that happens, Social Security will finally get fixed. We don't want to wish for a crisis, but the truth is that only a full-blown crisis is going to fix the American political system. And it is my sincere hope that in the wake of this election that there's going to be a split in both parties, and that the nuttier elements of both parties will go back to the trailer parks where they live and stay there. But first we'll have to go through a lot of ugly stuff. Someone else, please. I know there are a lot of active minds out here. Come on. Way back there, sir. Yeah, it's interesting that, you know, a lot of life is picking the right enemies. And the only thing Russia's a really good enemy to pick. I'm actually all for Russia being the villain of the day because it's a broke villain. They are coming apart, or their economy is just coming to bits over there. And it would take a huge and very unlikely rise in the price of oil to put them back on any kind of sound financial footing. The other thing is that it's not just their economy, but there's all sorts of social statistics in Russia that are really unpleasant. Life expectancy is falling in Russia. It's the only developed country in the world where life expectancy is going steadily downwards, particularly for men, mostly having to do with alcoholism. Their country's population is actually, especially if you leave aside their version of illegal immigration, their population is going downward. This is a power in decline. So if we're going to have an enemy, let's not have a power on the rise. Better Russia as an enemy than China as an enemy. The problem, of course, being nukes. I mean, if things get really bad for them, do they unleash the nukes? I'm hoping, A, that Russia will be so screwed up by then that they won't work, and B, no. Putin's an evil man, but he seems to be a rational player. I am personally more worried about China, but China is for those of you who have been to China, you know that China has got a lot of surface glitter and a lot of surface power and a lot of surface sophistication. But if you go just 40 miles outside any of the major cities, you are in another millennia. I mean, things have not changed out there, since the Tang Dynasty. China's got a long, long way to go before it's as I think but to get back to Russia, I think we're picking the right enemy there. Sir. Yeah, I mean, fifth grade, I think as Charles Krauthammer pointed out earlier, would that Trump got up to fifth grade level. I mean, it is, for those of you, and most of you probably have, who have toddlers, have had toddlers in your life, I mean, he's at a toddler level. But yes, Trump is very effective and really what he's most effective at is not speaking at all. I mean, he's really brilliant when he keeps his mouth. In fact, I think he'd be 15, 20 points ahead if he had never said a word. Except, hey, hi, everybody. I love being here. It's a great, wonderful, terrific place. So the last day, night before, day before, whatever, of the New Hampshire primary, I'm doing a piece on the New Hampshire primary, and for BBC Radio, of all things. And I take my 16-year-old daughter with me as my grip. I've got me, the radio producer, and I said, you want to come along? I'll get you a press pass. You can come along. So we bookended the day. We went to see a lot of candidates, do a lot of junk. But we bookended the day. We began the day with Hillary Clinton, and we ended the day with Donald Trump. Let me tell you the contrast in the rallies. Not the people so much who were at the rallies. It's New Hampshire. Everybody pretty much looks alike. They got so much clothes on, you can't tell them apart. And there's, we have zero diversity. I mean, we do have prejudice in New Hampshire, but it's against French Canadians. So, because that's all we have. So in the morning, we go to Hillary's rally, which is held in the combination cafeteria and auditorium at the Manchester, New Hampshire Junior College. And it's one of those junior colleges that was built out of concrete blocks in the 1970s. And you look at this building and you go, only because the amount of floodlighting and the amount of concertina wire could tell you whether this is a minimum security federal prison or a self-storage unit or a junior college. So we go into this incredibly depressing building with the fluorescent lighting flickering. And Hillary gets up in her rally, which starts at like 9 o'clock in the morning. It's freezing cold. And she just starts droning. People say, boy, she has a mastery of detail. She's got a mastery of nothing but detail. It's all detail. And it's all at the same tone of voice. This is a woman, this is so boring. I'm looking at my 16-year-old. She's just like, I mean, this is a woman who could be giving away puppies to 6-year-olds and make it boring. The kids would be going, oh, I don't know, I don't think so, Dad, can we go home? It's like, I was just mind-numbing. I have no idea. Even if I had given a damn what Hillary thinks about anything, I wouldn't. But I mean, I was trying to report this, so I was trying to pay attention. I just couldn't do it. Trump's rally that night is at the sports arena. And you go into the sports arena, and the sports arena is filled with people, and they're all having a great time. And the music is blaring. There are flags flying. And I got to tell you one thing about Trump is that he's got great, especially for like a guy in his 60s like myself, you know, I think I'm a year younger than Trump. He's got a killer taste in like 60s, 70s rock and roll. It's all the stuff I love, you know, and it's like not Rolling Stones, but not Rolling Stones that you hear all the time, like Start Me Up, but stuff from like 12 by 5, you know. I mean, great old Rolling Stones. And he's blaring this music, and people are hugging each other, and flags are flying, and he comes out, you know, and he waves at the crowd, and I don't know, you know, and when he goes back, my daughter says, "But Dad, he didn't say anything." And I said, "Yes, bonus." You know? Brilliant, you know. It was but just a contrast between the two venues and the two crowds, you know, the enthusiasm that you got from that. So, yeah, speak better than a fifth grade level. Speak not at all, you know. Well, I think part of it's that terrible process that people have to go through as presidents. You know, their faces. If you see the before and after of people, except for George W. Bush, looks exactly the same when he became president after he left office. But most presidents age horribly in office. You know, like Jimmy Carter aged about 60 years. You know, while he was in that brief for. And yeah, Obama getting gaunter and grayer, and they're having kind of a pretty bad barber at the White House. You know, yes, makes his ears stick out more. He does look like Alfred E. Newman, and it's sort of sad. You know, gosh, you know, that guy. I mean, nice kid, I think, you know, I mean, but spent too much time at college. You know, I'm really, you know, never had a job. You know, it's kind of performance like, you know, I can't bring I don't hate him the way I hate Hillary, you know, because there's not enough there to hate. Really, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, you know, he irks me. The way I feel about Obama, I think a lot of you people will remember the same situation. Remember when you were taking that, like, freshman survey course that you had to take for a required course in college? Like, they required that you have, like, 2 courses in science, even though you couldn't understand science and you didn't care about science. I was taking Rocks for Jocks, you know, and you got like it's one of those auditorium classes. There are like 200 kids in the class. And you got this pissed off graduate student teaching it. He is so angry that you are not interested in geology. He knows perfectly well how you feel about geology. How you feel about geology is that you have got the frat house's test from last year, and the test never changes. And you've got that test tucked into your back pocket. And he's mad about it. He's so mad that he actually, even though this class meets at, like freshman classes do, 8 o'clock on Monday morning, he takes attendance, even though there are 200 people in there. That's Obama, you know. Every time he comes on television, you know you're going to get scolded, you know, because you're just not, you know, up to his standard at Harvard Law School or whatever, you know. Whereas Hillary is evil, you know, evil. I mean, it's just evil. It's greed, the sin of greed. Except that she's not, we're all greedy or we wouldn't be here, right? But we're greedy for money. And money is not zero sum. The money that we make, if we make it lawfully, the money that we make doesn't leave any less money for anybody else. Being an investor is about creativity, about making things, making more of stuff. Wealth is not a pizza where if I have too many slices, you have to eat the Domino's box. We make money by making more pizza. Hillary is greedy. Obviously, she's greedy for money, too. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I'll give her a pass on that. She's greedy for power. And power is zero sum. You know, power you have over me is power I don't have over myself. You know? Power is zero sum. And when people are greedy for power, I don't care how ambitious people are. People can be crazy ambitious, want to be the biggest rock and roll star, biggest rap star in the entire world. Fine, there's always room for one more rap star, one more rock and roll star, whatever. You know, one more famous, you know, Brad and Angelina have broken up. There's room for another famous couple, you know, if you want to be that, fine, you know. I don't care what people are greedy for except power. When people are greedy for power, I get creeped out. And she is all about the greed for power. Sir? Well, it's different for different situations. Why are college professors so liberal? Because they're my age. You know, the heads of departments and the people who see who else gets hired and gets tenure and so on, they're all my age. And I'm a 60s kid. I'm college class of 1969. I was right in the thick of that. And we were idiots. You may well remember, or you may have been one yourself. You know, I mean, we were just idiots. It was like, you think these kids the millennials are bad today? They got nothing on us, you know. I mean, honestly, you know, I mean, we were so weird. We used up all the weird. We used up all the weird, and when they came through that kids nowadays, when they go through that natural adolescent thing where they have to be rebellious and weird, they had to like pierce their lips and get all these painful tattoos and stuff because we'd used up all the weird. We wore all the weird clothes. We had all the weird haircuts, weird slang, weird drugs. We'd used it all, you know, and there was none left. I feel so. Anyway, we were a horrible, horrible generation, and most of us got over it, thank God. You know, those who didn't are still at college. So that explains academia. Journalism is a different thing. Journalism got academicked. It got academicized, or however one would go on to, however one would say that. I'm old enough that when I first started in journalism, it was still a blue-collar trade. I'm a Mick. I come from Toledo, Ohio, from the Rust Belt. I come out of a blue-collar background. Okay, reporters used to be craftspeople. What they did was like, okay, you're growing up, you're growing up in a blue-collar environment, blue-collar ethnic environment. You like to read. You don't want to get up early in the morning and lift heavy stuff. You got two choices. You can be a newspaper reporter or a priest. So you're going like, whiskey and women or just whiskey? You know? Or as it turned out, whiskey and boys. But anyway, you know, a lot of us are going, yeah, whiskey and women, you know, and free hockey tickets, you know. So it was like, you know, it was a craft. It was like craft like any other, you know. Things happened, and you could go on the other side of the police line and look at that stuff, and you wrote it down, you know, a horrible car crash. Oh, my gosh, you wouldn't want to see a thing like this, you know. Car crashes are bad, you know. But then people started to go to journalism school, and I blame it all on the movie All the President's Men. Because all of these little world-saving twerps who were going to go into the Peace Corps decided no, they would become journalists and they would tell truth to power. And so they went to journalism school, something I didn't even know existed, you know. The way it was like the way you got a job as a reporter when I was young was the same way Jimmy Olsen in Superman got it. You know, you hung around the newspaper office until you got to be a cub reporter. You know, and then you started out writing deaths elsewhere, and you gradually moved up the ladder till you covered fires and crime and stuff and other fun things. So anyway, the whole trade of journalism turned into the profession of journalism, which is complete BS. And so that explains those two areas. Then the third area of untrammeled liberalism is entertainment. And the reason for that is the fundamental leftist belief is that deep down inside people are good. Whereas the fundamental conservative belief is that deep down inside people are rotten. And I was a foreign correspondent for 20 years. I covered any number of wars and rebellions and stuff like that. And I will tell you, deep down inside, people are rotten. But, you know, an entertainer has to have the audience love him. So he has to have that deep, you know, leftist kind of belief that secretly people are good, you know, because he's trying to get that love from the audience. So this is why. There are exceptions, of course, in all three fields, but that's the general reason. They got the hook out, yanking me out of here yet? I don't know what time it is. We got time for one more question? I would hope. Yes, sir.
I was wondering what you would think the impact of the Trump presidency would be on the media.
Impact of the Trump. Well, it'd be great. I mean, in that respect, I do support Trump because, boy, the media got it coming, you know. I also think a lot of people who basically support Trump support him on the basis of Washington's got this coming, you know. But, yeah, they would just be, I don't know, they'd be falling apart, you know, trying to explain this away. And so it would be really good. it would be a big dose of some medicine they need applied in an old-fashioned way, and Trump would provide the orifice. So I think it would be good. Well, thank you all very much.